One of the questions we get often asked, one of the questions we get asked quite often is whether on the twin battery bikes you can ride it with just a single battery. The quick and simple answer to that is yes. So all you need to do is take a battery out of the bike, and then when you start it up, the bike will only recognise it as being a single battery bike. So you get half the range, obviously, but you can just ride it with the bike a bit lighter. When you do take a battery out though, the best thing to do is to buy one of the transportation covers that come from Reese & Muller. They cost around about 40 quid. And it's a blank sort of plastic cover, so it looks the same as the battery that was in there, but it's just got a little shaped aluminium thing so it clips into the space, and then you can carry on riding your bike. One of the concerns quite a lot of people have is what happens when the battery goes flat on your bike. This is quite specific to people who have the roll-off hub, so the E14 hub. And their concern is around whether you're going to be able to change gear or not, because obviously at the moment you'll have a little shifter up on the handlebars which is electronic, and that is powered by the battery that's in the bike. Now the way that the Bosch system manages this is that as the battery runs down, you get down to about 8%, I think it is 5 or 8%, I can't quite remember which one. But then after a number of warnings, so the battery level going orange and then going red, it will then reserve the last part of the battery. So you cannot use that last piece of battery to power the motor, but what you can do is your lights will still function, so you can ride home in the dark on a heavy bike. You will be able to change gear on your roll-off hub, and you'll also have the display on your bike as well. So you'll still be able to use your bike, you just won't be able to use the power assist part of it. If you don't have the battery in the bike, you'll find that you cannot change gear on your roll-off hub. So say you're riding along and you manage to lose your battery somehow, or you do manage to run your battery completely flat. If there is no power, you're not going to get a shift on your roll-off hub. You will, however, be able to continue riding it in exactly the same gear until you get somewhere to be able to fix it. One of the questions we get asked a lot is about the range you're going to get on a full charge of a bike. Now, we need to bear in mind a few different things on this one. Size of the battery that you've got, the type of motor that you've got, the weight of the bike that you've got, the gearing that you've got, and the weight of the rider, and I guess the temperature and the terrain. So there's loads and loads of different things to take into account when you're thinking about how far you're going to get on a single charge. Really easy way of working this out, and it's almost a cheating way of working it out, is to look at the capacity of the battery, which is measured in watt hours. So your battery will probably be called a 500 watt hour, or more commonly a 625 watt hour. If you slash the last number off that will tell you the rough range that you're going to get. So a 500 watt hour battery is going to get you 50 miles, a 625 is going to get you 62.5. So things that are going to drive down the range you're going to get from the battery in your bike are going to be things like the gearing, the weight of the bike, and the terrain that you're riding on. Gearing, most efficient, you'd be looking at a chainer cassette or a roll-off. You'll get a little bit less range or something like an Embiolo. But the biggest thing is going to be the weight of the bike. A cargo bike, because of its weight, is going to go a lot less distance than something like a Nevo in a base spec with a chainer cassette on it. And if range is really important to you, don't forget you can buy the Bosch dual battery technology. So on a Reese & Muller, the smallest battery you're going to get is 500 watt hours, so about 50 miles of range. If you go for something like a supercharger, you can then have it with 2 batteries in it, and they can both be specified as a 625 watt hour version, giving you a total of 1,250 watt hours. So you're going to get around about 125 miles from that bike, bearing in mind you're going to use it mainly in eco, and for the hills you're going to pop it up to turbo and then take it back down to eco to do your ride. And if you're a really light rider, you'll get way more than that as well. A lot of people, when they're buying the bikes, have range anxiety, and they will be thinking they definitely need to buy 2 batteries on their bike. So these twin battery bikes, or the Bosch dual battery bike technology in the Reese & Muller range, is known as a super version of the bike. So something like a supercharger is a charger with 2 batteries mounted in the frame, and a super delight is a delight with 2 batteries. One goes in the top tube and one goes in the down tube. Now, it's really important to think about how you're going to be doing your riding and the distances you're realistically going to be doing. Everybody wants to buy a supercharger or a super delight because they are the top of the range, the best bikes you can possibly buy. I own one, so I'm guilty of this as well. But just think, if you're only ever going to be doing 20 to 30 miles, you are never going to be using that second battery. And the second battery weighs around about somewhere between 3 and 4 kilograms a go. So you will be carrying 3 or 4 kilograms everywhere that you go, which is a complete waste of time. And because all the bikes are limited to 250 watts and probably 85 newton meters of torque, any extra weight you add to that bike is going to slow you down. So you're better to go for a single 625 watt hour battery if you're going to be doing the sort of the 20 to 60 mile rides. But if you're doing multi-day rides, that's when you want to be going for all the twin batteries, and don't be shy about it. The difference in performance isn't enormous, but it is something that you might want to bear in mind. So if you make the decision that you're going to go for a single battery bike, but then you think that maybe one day you're going to go and do that really big trip where you're going to need the second battery, you've decided to buy a single battery bike, so you can't upgrade it to a dual battery. So you now need to carry an extra battery. First of all, you give us a shout and say, we need another battery. We would supply it with the correct cover for the Reese and Muller bikes. They are as simple as you could just chuck them straight into your pannier bag. You're probably going to have loads of clothes and other stuff in there as well, so it'll be nice and secure and snug. It's not going to rattle around, so that's one way of doing it. When I've done bike packing before on my supercharger, I've actually put the extra battery onto the front rack of the bike and tucked it in behind the tent I had, and then strapped that down onto the bike. Probably went over the weight rating of 5 kilograms for the rack, but it didn't break. That's not advice to go and do that, but that's another way that you could carry it around. The other option for carrying the battery is to use the Reese and Muller front bag that is available. We often get asked whether the battery from the bike will fit into that front bag. The short answer is yes, it will, but it doesn't fit particularly snugly. So it doesn't lie flat in the bottom of the bag at a diagonal or anything. It kind of needs to go in at an angle into the bag to fit in. That wouldn't be a problem if you've got other things in there. It will sort of balance it, you'll be able to stuff around it, but if it's on its own, it's not the nicest fit ever. When people are thinking of doing the longer rides, they might have decided to go for the single battery bike, and one of the concerns is can they charge that bike when they're out on a ride? So what you'd tend to do is you'd find a cafe or a pub that you want to stop in, ask them if you can charge your bike. It will probably cost them anything from sort of 5 pence to 15 pence, those types of numbers, and in exchange for a £5 coffee, it sounds like a little bit of a bargain. But what people really want to know is how long is it going to take to charge that bike, or what charge would I get within an hour? As a guide, it really depends on the size of battery you've got in your bike. So in a Reese and Muller bike, the smallest battery you're going to have is a 500 watt hour. The largest battery you're going to have is a 1250 watt hour. Now, Bosch make 3 different chargers that are available to charge your bikes. Reese and Muller provide you with the 2 faster chargers. So the Bosch chargers are a compact 2 amp charger, normally supplied with cheaper mid-range bikes that are out in the market. Then there's the standard charger, which is a 4 amp charger, and then there's a fast charger, which is a 6 amp charger. If you buy a single battery bike from Reese and Muller, you will get the 4 amp charger, and if you buy a dual battery bike from Reese and Muller, then you will get a 6 amp charger. So as an example of charging time for a 625 watt hour battery, to try and get that battery up to 50% charged with the compact charger, so the 2 amp charger, you're looking at about 4.25 hours to get to that 50%. If you went for the fast charger version of that, you would be doing that charge in 1.4 hours, so just under 1.5 hours to get that 50%. If you're looking at how long it's going to take to completely charge your battery, so again looking at a 625 watt hour battery, on the compact charger to completely charge it is going to be just short of 9 hours, and with the fast charger you're going to be looking at about 3.75 hours to do that 100% charge.